Good morning, everybody. Hope you're all well today. We've only got a couple of people at the moment, so I'm not sharing my screen yet, but I will be in just a minute. We usually find that it takes a few minutes for everybody to turn up after the time, so it usually ends up that we start about 5 minutes after the beginning of the session officially shows. But have a lower number than usual this morning, actually. When I log in just before the 10 o'clock start, there's usually a few more on, so it's a bit quiet today. Don't know whether that'll be indicative of how many actually join, but we'll find out anyway. Okay, so just going to share my screen now, although we won't actually be starting it. Let me just do that. There we go. So everyone should be able to see the screen now. Because of how many people are joining, I won't ask whether you can see the screen or not. However, if you can't see the screen, it's a good idea just to log out and log back in again, because that usually fixes the problem. But you should be able to see the analytics landing screen at the moment. So that should have a panel on one side of it saying analytics, and then there's a lady typing on a laptop, I think it is, in the corner. So you should be able to see that. As I say, if you can't, if you just try logging out and back in again, and you should be all right. We're getting people joining up now. So we'll give it a couple of minutes because, as I say, a lot of people don't turn up straight away. We're building up gradually here. I can see attendees attending, joining, and it is going up quite respectably, but we're still quite a long way from the actual amount of people who registered to join. So I will leave it for a few more minutes just to give people time. If we don't have everyone by 5 past, then I will just start. But we'll just see what happens with that. Let's say it's already building up quite nicely now. I apologize in advance as well. I'm a bit croaky. I know actually that there are a couple of people on here today who I've done training sessions for recently, in the last few weeks. And I've been croaking at them as well. So I apologize in advance to everybody, but they'll be used to that one because I've been making that apology for a few weeks. Actually said there was a question on there then, but I've just had a look at the questions list and there's nothing there. So I don't know who typed a question on there then, but it may be that you deleted it because you can do that, I believe. If you didn't though, if you'd like to put it back on again, there will be an opportunity to ask questions about the actual session at the end of it, but some people do sometimes have questions at the beginning. So Give it just another minute or two. We're still a fair few short, although to be perfectly honest, we often find that we don't get everybody who registers because we only do one of these sessions every month, either myself or my colleague Abraham, and it's always at 10 o'clock in the morning. It's usually in the first or second week of the month as well, and not everyone who registers can attend. The reason why they do it is because you get a recording of it. So even if you don't actually attend, then you will still get a recording of the session. So that's the reason why very often we don't get everybody joining. I will just check at this point. Not everybody has to do it, but I assume everyone can hear me and I'm not waffling into the void. However, if a couple of you'd like to just raise your hands if you can hear me, just so that I know that people can do it, I'll just put you all back down again afterwards. Yes, I've got a few on there. That's brilliant. Okay, thank you very much for that. I've never had a problem before, but this would be the one day that it would be that nobody can hear me, and I didn't bother to ask. So it's always a good idea to do that. That's brilliant. Thank you. I'm going to put all your hands down again now. There we go. Okay, so it's 5 past now, and I'm going to start. We haven't got everybody, but as I say, people may not all be joining because they might just be doing it for the recording. And for those of you who are then, they can always catch up on it anyway as we go through. So let me first of all just minimize the main menu bit here. There we go. And once again, I assume everyone can see the screen if they can also hear me talking. So it should all be on there. Oh, what's this one here? Sorry, just 1 second, just one moment. Oh, that's okay. It's just an apology for joining. That's all right. Okay, right. So, as you can see on there, we've got the sort of landing screen that I've got on the system here now. So, good morning, and thank you for joining us today for this masterclass. My name is Edward Evans. I'm one of the training consultants here at Morpay and Natural HR. I only do the Morpay side though. Today's masterclass is on the analytics tool within the system, and we'll be walking you through the whole area of that of the software for that. You'll also have a chance to ask any of your questions live later on as well. So I would ask that as you go through, if you do have any questions, just pop them into the questions area. I won't answer them until I've completed the presentation, but they'll be there for me to go through afterwards, and I'll go through as many of them as I can. If I can't get through all of them, then they're normally picked up by the back office team afterwards and they get back in touch with you. So please feel free to put your questions through on there. Now, before we begin, there are a couple of things that we need to note here. So due to the volume of the people on the call, and just to keep things manageable, we have put everyone's microphone on mute. And if you're struggling to view the masterclass or you're having any audio issues, then you can let us know. I mean, I've already checked this, so as far as I can tell, everybody's okay. But as I've said before, if you are having any problems, logging out and back in again is always a good way of fixing them. Have you turned it back off and on again? That's the axiom for everything really these days, I think. So you can try that. Now, we have allocated up to 11 a.m. for this, but that includes the time for any questions that people have. So as I've already said, we're very keen to answer all of the questions if we can. So in preparation for that, if you just pop your questions into the box throughout the class, and we'll do our best to get through as many of them as we can at the end of it. Royal we, that is. That's me. So after the masterclass, we'll send you a link for the recording. So if you do, for whatever reason, need to leave early, or you aren't in a position to take notes, it's not a problem. We'll send you everything as soon as it's available. I personally never take notes on these things because I can never read them afterwards. And please be aware that I am training on a demo environment. We don't have access to customer environments, of course, especially not on these ones. If your system isn't reflective of all the actions that I have in here, it could be that you need to upgrade it. So it is worth chatting to your account manager. And you find there are actually two different versions of analytics, and depending on which version of the system you've got, it will depend on what access you have on there. Now, if we just move to the next screen here. So what we'll be looking at today, as I say, you've got the dashboard. Now, the dashboard part of the analytics is available to both core and advanced customers. Sorry. And then we got the storyboards bit, which is mostly for the advanced people, though I'll explain a bit more about that later on. And then there's the explore option, which is only for the advanced version. So you'll find that if you have versions like the essential, the payroll version of the system, then normally you only have the standard version, the core version of the analytics. However, if you have some of the higher ones with HR functionality, you'll have the advanced version of it. Now, from the front end, they both look exactly the same. It's just that the advanced version has a couple of extra features, so I'll go through those with you. Now, after that, we'll have the questions. So if you just pop those in as we go along, as I say, and I will answer those as best I can at the end of the session. So I'm just going to log in now. There's a password I preferred earlier. And you can access the analytics module from the main screen here if you have it. So if you scroll down a little bit on here when you log in, you'll find the analytics tool just sitting in the bottom left-hand corner normally. However, if I just go into the payroll menu here, and to be honest, it doesn't matter whether it's payroll or HR. So there is some of you on here today who may only have payroll, but it depends on which version of the system that you've got. Some of you will have the premium HR, some of you will have the advanced HR, but it doesn't really matter. When you log into the system, whichever bit you go into, you can either access it from the main dashboard when you log in, or if you go to the little apps button in the top corner that looks like a Rubik cube, then you can access it from here as well. So you can see we've got the analytics module just there. Now, one thing that I won't be able to do today, because I'm sure I'll get people asking this, but I can't demonstrate specific bits of information because there just isn't the time on that. So you might have questions about, can you do this, that, and the other? The chances are, if the information is in the system, then you can probably get it out of the analytics tool. And the analytics tool, there's an awful lot of playing around with it involved in. And you may also find that the extractor is an easier way to get some of the information out, especially if you're looking for specific data about employees and you're building your own reports, because the extractor allows you to put in the information that you want and then extract that data from the report. We have done a masterclass on the extractor previously a couple of months ago, so you should be able to access that on our YouTube channel. There is also information about it in the e-learning area on our website as well. Sorry, I mentioned before I'm losing my voice. So as far as that goes, the analytics tool is different. It's presenting the information differently, and it's also presenting a lot of different information as well. So you might find that if you can't get it out of the analytics tool, it would be better to use the extractor for it. The analytics tool, though, does have an awful lot of information in it, and this screen that we're looking at now is the main dashboard. The main dashboard will be the same for everybody, although it will depend on what kind of information you're recording in the system as to whether it will be available for you. For example, if we scroll down the screen here, you've got information like safety and development. Now, if you have the essential version of the system, which is just the basic analytics, so the basic payroll, then it doesn't have safety or development information. That kind of stuff is under the HR module, and therefore you may well have the menu option on there, but it won't have any data in it because it just doesn't present it. And the same goes if you're not using it for absences and things. A lot of people who use payroll don't use the absence feature at all, although you usually have the calendar there for it. And therefore, it won't have that data in it. There is a certain amount of diversity data. You'll always have that compensation because that's things like salaries. And then a bit further up, you've got workforce composition, hiring and terminations. Now, everyone's got that data because you'll always be having people who've joined or left, and you've got your full composition for the workforce, etc. So some of the information won't be available to everyone. It will depend on what you're using and what version of the system that you've got. But the ones at the top, you will be able to access those. They'll all be there. And as I say, everybody has the same menu as far as this goes. Now, just as a little aside on this, because when you look at the data on here, they call it a storyboard. Now, the front end here, it's giving you all the standard information. You can't change these fields at all. So the information that you get on this landing screen, it's fixed. It's changes according to the information that you put into the system regarding people that you hire, people that you terminate, when you change people's salaries, that kind of thing. All of that information will feed into the analytics and change the data in here, but you can't change it yourself. So that's the first thing. This particular area here is fixed. Now, later on, if we just have a quick look here, you can see at the top there's that sort of slightly blanked out thing there for the storyboard. And if we just go into that bit here for a second, and you'll see that there are a lot of storyboards. This is storyboard library. And this is another way of accessing that information on the main screen, but it also allows you to access your own storyboards. Now, people who have the core version of this don't have the facility to create their own storyboards. So you can see at the top there, we've got some that various people within MorePay have actually created at one point or another, and they are not going to be on yours because they're just things that people have added into our demonstration system here. But a bit further down, you've got the standard ones. So you've got things like absence compensation, stuff like that, workforce composition on there as well. Now, those ones, you've got the access to them from the storyboard, and you can click on those and you can view the data. So although you can see it from the main screen, you can also see it from the storyboard. Now, as I've mentioned, core people won't be able to build their own, but they will still see the standard ones. So that's the workforce composition, the standard tabs on here as well, which you can minimize that data. Now we'll come back to storyboards again in a little while, because I'll be showing you how you create your own, and if you've got that facility, and how you can add to the existing ones as well. So we will come back to those. But that's just a little aside really, because this data on here is also visible within that storyboard too. Now, each of these panels here, you can access in a number of different ways. So if we just look at the hiring one as an example, but they all have the same access as far as it goes. So on the main screen, it gives you the main information. Now, in the case of things like workforce composition and terminations, that information is really just numbers. And it's the same if you go down there, you've got compensation there as well. So that's just giving you a breakdown of the salaries, etc., for employees on there. But the way that they work is the same. So if you click on workforce composition, it will take you in, it will show you the information. You can actually export that data, but the ones that have got a little graph on them, they actually provide a little bit more information. So if I just click on terminations there for a second, all that does, if you click on it, it gives you a file here that you can export, and it exports this. If I click on the export button there, it will actually export it as a CSV file for you. And as you can see, it's just giving you a list of all the terminations for the period, for the year. So there's a little X in the top corner there. If we click on that, that will take us back to the main screen. So that one, if it's got just figures on like that, that will normally just give you a breakdown of the people or how much they're earning or who's been terminated, etc. And you can then export that as a CSV file. For these that have a little diagram on the front though, they do slightly different things. Like the hiring one here, for example, you can see we've got all the hiring information going back to 2010 on here. And if I click on one of those years, you click on the year itself at the bottom of the graph, it will then break that down into quarters. And if you click on a quarter, it'll break it down into months. And you can keep going down and down like that. Now, you'll notice in the top corner there, it then also gives you these little buttons. You've got the recycle button there, and you've also got the back arrow. So if you click on that, that just takes you up a level. If you click on the one that looks like a recycle button, I suppose, then that will take you back to the main screen. So you can go up a level, or you can just reset back to the main screen completely. Now, the thing is, though, you'll notice that when you hover over one of the bars on this graph here, it lights up slightly. And if you click on that, that will then give you a list. So these are all the people who were hired for the year 2014. And once again, you can export this as a CSV file. So if you click on export there, that will export that data as a CSV and you've got it there. If we just close that, and you can also, if you go to the top right hand corner here, you've got a couple of other options on here as well. So if you want to export the chart, then you can do that. And you can also export a CSV file. Now, in the case of this one here, it's giving you all of the information. So if you click on the export chart there, for example, it creates the chart. And if we just open that up, that's all it does. It's just a PNG file. People might use it so that they can get access and put it into reports and things like that. But you've also got the export CSV option on there as well. And that will then generate an export file for the CSV file for you as well. So it's just having to think about that now. Not quite sure what happened there. Let's just go into the analytics bit again. Try that one more time. Apologize for that. Usually it comes up, you get this link here. It says export on the exports page. But I think we might have a little bit of a glitch on there at the moment. So I apologize for that. Not quite sure what's going on there. We'll see that shortly anyway. So I'll show you what that should look like. It should actually give you the exports. If we click on the exports button there, that's where it sent it to. That's what it was supposed to bring you to. So I'm not quite sure what's going on there. But if you click on that, that will then open the file. So it looks like there's some kind of firewall issue on there at the moment because it's not opening the file. Then that's what the problem is on there. But usually that would give you access so that you can access the CSV file. So I do apologize for that. It was working perfectly all right yesterday when I tested it, but that whole thing, it'll be all right on the night. Doesn't always work. So I apologize for that. But the export button, if you ever want to go back and view it, then you'll normally be able to do that. So I apologize that that bit isn't working today, but that would normally just open the CSV file for you anyway. Now, the other one that you've got there as well is Explore. And if you click on Explore, that allows you to add information into it. So you can edit this and you can put your own data into it. Now, I'm going to come back to this bit shortly because this is a separate thing. And for people who have the advanced version of the system, they can actually create their own charts, whereas anybody with the core version, they can use the explore function and they can add additional headings in to this bit here. However, they can't create them from scratch the way that I'm going to show you. So we will be coming back to this bit later on, because it is something that you can do a little bit of editing on, but we will come back to that. So if you click on the Explore button, that allows you to edit the data. It won't let you change the configuration of what you see on the screen here, but it would allow you to save your own version of it. And I'll show you what I mean on that when we get to it later on. So we will come back to that. You'll also notice, though, that in the top left-hand corner there, you have a hyperlink, whether it's terminations or hiring or whatever. And if you click on that, that takes you into this back menu. And this bit here is actually there so that you get a better breakdown of information, different charts that you can use. You'll find out that these do work the same way. So you've got the insight library, that's the storyboard library, that bit there. But the export CSV, the export chart, that works the same way as the main screen does. So I've just shown you that one. The export CSV one isn't working at the moment, but it's will allow you normally to export a copy of the CSV version of this with the data in it, or you can export a chart with a PNG file that it creates that you can then put into reports and presentations and things like that. But you also have the Explore option on there as well, which takes you to the storyboard for this particular graph that we're looking at. My head went a bit blank there then. But the way that these work is the same as the others. So if you click on a year there, that will then give you a breakdown of the quarters. And if you click on a quarter, it will then give you the months, and you can just keep going down like that. Once again, you've got the back up a level and the recycle button there, which takes you back to the main screen. And once more, if you click on there, it will allow you to export a CSV version of the data that you've got on there. Now, some of these graphs will give you a list of the employees, others only give you the information. So maybe it's something to do with pay or safety information or something like that. So it depends really on the graph and what kind of information is built into it. But it doesn't really matter which of these you use. They all work the same way. They've all got this little button in the top right-hand corner. It's just that they're presenting the information that's available in different ways so that you can use it differently. And it's the same when you go into any of the others, like the terminations or anything like that. So if we go back to the main screen there, and go into the terminations one, for example, and you can see you've got termination trends for the last 4 years. If you click on that, it breaks it into quarters, but you've also got here terminations by reason. So once again, if you click on that graph there, it'll generate a list of the information that you need. As I say, some of them will actually give you the names of the people, others it will just give you general information about them. So this one is actually trying to pull up a list of people who were dismissed in 2023 in this quarter. So you can see on here there you've got the list of people there on that throughout. Now, as I say, they all work the same way as far as that goes. You get different information, obviously, but the way that they work is the same. So if you click on the hyperlink, you just get breakdowns, and the graphs work the same way that they do on the main screen, but you get a lot more information. But you've also got things there like the positions hired into on this one, for example, and that would just give you a list of the people who were hired into those different positions. So it's pulling all that information from the payroll data that you put into the system. If we go back to the main screen again now, and as I said earlier on, the storyboards bit there is really just presenting this information here, especially if you're on the core version. So if you go into the storyboards there, as I've already mentioned, the information a bit further down here is really just standard and workforce information. They're the ones that you get for the core, and you can access these the same way as you can the others. You can go into those and you can pull the information. It's just a different way of accessing it. Now, if you have the advanced version of the system, you will also have this explore button as well, which you can see next to the storyboards. And if we click on that, it then gives you this screen. Now, we saw this screen a couple of minutes ago because I clicked on explore for the hires information, and it gave us this screen, but it had a couple of metrics and things in it, because this is how you build those reports. So the ones that are on the main screen are pre-configured, and although you can't actually change the information on the main screen, it's all fixed. You could create your own version of that report. So you could add additional bits of information into it, and then you could add it to a storyboard, whether it's an existing one, if it's core, or whether you wanted to create your own storyboard, you'd be able to access them from there. So although if you create your own report or you create your own version of one of the ones on the main screen, you wouldn't be able to access them from the main screen. You would be able to access them from the storyboards list that we saw just a couple of minutes ago. Now, this information here, you can put what you want into it. And as I said before, questions about specific things that you want to make with it, I can't really answer because I can't demonstrate because there's not enough time to go through all the information that's required in order to do that. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to show you the general areas of it and how it works, because that way you can then have a play around with it yourself. You can put your own information into it. You can create your own charts, and you can't break it. I mean, you can put too much information in it. So you can go in here, and sometimes you'll create a chart version that the system just, it can't present the data the way you want it to because of the type of chart. And you'll find that the basic chart is probably the best one for most things, because that one is a bit more versatile than the others, but you can use the other versions on here as well. I'll show you a couple of different variations on that just so that you can see how it works. But I'm just going to add a couple of bits of data in here just to give you an idea of how you use it, and then after that it's up to you. You can go away and have a play with it. And that's the thing with the analytics tool, it's really about the playing with it, which is like the extractor, because again you can get all kinds of data out of that. As long as you know the basic rules about how it works, you can get all kinds of information out of it. You put all kinds of different filters on it, and it's similar with this as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a report with a list of terminations, people who've left the business, but I'm also going to add some information in about the position tenure, so how long they've been with the business, and we're just going to create that kind of report. So first of all, on here, you can see the different types of report that you've got available. And I'm going to start just with the basic one, but we can do a little bit of playing around with it, and I can show you how it presents the data from that. Now, it will always have calendar in there, and you can actually decide, if you click on calendar, you can remove it completely if you want to, but I wouldn't recommend that, because if you take the calendar out, it means it will pull all the data that's ever existed. That can mean that first of all, the chart might end up being very confusing depending on what you're actually pulling about it, but also it can take forever for it to generate it, because if there's too much information, then it can take a while for it to generate. So it's always a good idea to leave the calendar in, even though you could remove it if you want to, and that's what the X is there for. But if you actually click on calendar, it will then open up a separate screen here, and you've got this option here. So you can see I've got data going back to 2010 on there, and I could actually choose to have specific quarters or specific years. You can just click on them and it will then add them in. However, what I'm going to do, if we scroll down a bit, you've also got time models on there as well. So if you scroll down there, you can see you've got things like last 12 months, this quarter, last 3 months, last 5 quarters, last 12 months today. So you can go down there and you can pick up whatever you like. So I'm just going to pick up this year current. And when you click on that, it will then change the pivoted dimensions option on there. And basically the dimensions there, it's the lines on the side and the bottom of the chart, the axis, that was the word I was looking for. So you got the X and Y axis on the chart, and basically that's what the dimensions are. Now, once you've decided on what period you want to look at, you could just run that. It's not going to give you any data though, because there's nothing in it. So the next thing you have to do is add some metrics in. And this bit here is the metrics. And as you can see, you've got things like absence. And if you click on that, it gives you a breakdown of things like input. So if you wanted to look at all the absence days or the absence durations, there's even COVID-19 data in there, although nobody's really keeping that information these days, the majority of people, but the options are in there. They were built in at the time of the pandemic. So you'll find that each of the metrics, compensation, for example, you've got things like annual salary in there, employee pension contributions, gross pay, national insurance, etc. So you can pull all kinds of information out of the system by doing these, but going into the things like the HR side of the system, which again, as I say, a lot of you may not have, but you've got areas there for employee relations, so you can put in things like disciplinaries and that kind of data. So there's a lot of stuff in there that you might not necessarily be able to use because you don't have the modules. It depends on which version you've got, but there's also a lot of information that you can. So certainly things like compensation, possibly absence. It depends whether you're using the system for that kind of data, but it's all in there. Now, the thing is, though, terminations, everybody has to do those occasionally. And if you can't find what you're looking for, so if you're looking down there, you think, well, I can't find the data that I'm looking at, then what you can do instead is you can type it into the top there. So if you type in terminations, for example, and it will then give you all the headings there that have got the word in. And there's the one that I'm looking for. It's the terminations total. So if you click on that, it will add that into the metrics area. And in theory, you could put lots of different metrics in there if you wanted to. It depends because, as I say, it could end up being a bit of a messy report if you do that, but the option is there anyway. Now, at this point, I could start just run that report. If I click on terminations in the actual selection area, it then gives you information about how you want to view the data. So this will show how it's presented on the actual graph. So at the moment, I've got it set up as columns, but on there I could change it to area where you get you can set it up so that you've got lines rather than bars, or you can have a spline on there instead, which is like a curved line instead, showing the trends. So you can change that. And once again, I'll show you what that does in a moment anyway. Now, the other thing I want to put in there, though, as I say, is tenure. And that actually falls under the, if we just look at this now, just close that down. That actually falls under dimensions. So tenure is not under the metrics bit. If we scroll down a bit, you've got dimensions. So you can add in things like if you just wanted to see people between certain ages, then you could do that. So you could click on age there. And if you click on the age bit within the dimensions area on the explore part, you can then go in and you can pick a specific age group up, for example. So you can actually add all kinds of different dimensions in too. Now, just to keep it simple, I'm going to just create one based on tenure, how long the person has worked for the business, because if you put too much in, then it just gets confusing. But you can just keep adding to them as well. And that's the thing, once you generated the chart, you can just go through and you can add extra bits in, and you can keep doing that until you upset the thing. And at one point, if you put too much information in, it will just present nothing. But you can't break it. All you have to do then is remove the bit of data that caused the report to fail, and it will then just start presenting the data again. So you can just keep adding and adding and adding until the thing rebels, and all that will happen is it will just not generate a report. So you just remove the bit that caused the problem on there. So I've got tenure on there now, and it's actually position tenure that I'm looking for, but you've also got tenure in years as well. So I'm going to add position tenure in there. And once again, if you click on the dimensions for that, you can then look at the filter on there. So you could have a filter on there saying that you want to look at terminations for the last year, for the current year, sorry. But you only want to look at people who have worked for the business between 4 and 6 years, for example. Now, I'm not going to do that, but you could just add those in. So you can change that. As you can see, if you click on it, it's now going to look at people who've only been in the business for 6 to 12 months. But if you untick that, it will then take it back off again. And if you click on this little arrow here, it will then show you a breakdown. So you can say, well, 7 months, 8 months. You can be very specific if you want to with the data that you see in there. Now, another thing that you can do, although I wouldn't personally recommend it, it doesn't make a very big difference to the actual chart, but you can move the dimensions. So at the moment, it's going to have the position tenure on one axis, it'll have the pivoted, the calendar on the other, but you could actually have both of them on the same axis if you wanted to. And if I just run that query now, so if we just generate the query there, what have I got there? Oh, I see. Position tenure level 1, there we go. That's interesting. Bear with me for a second. Got a feeling they're doing something with this today. Let's just take that one out. Let's try that one. Okay, seems like they're doing something with the data on this today, because I did a little test on this yesterday and it was working all right, but I've just put it a bit further back on there so that it's pulling the data from a bit further back than I had it yesterday. So if we just put the tenure back in again here, there's a position tenure, and then we'll run the query again. And there you go. So with this one, because we're going back quite a long way on this now, I've actually put a few years in on there. So you've got the list of the employees who were terminated, and you can also see the termination colors there. So it shows you how long the person has been working for the business as well when they left. So this bit here, all the color codings there relate to how long the person was in service, and then how many people were terminated who were under that length of service. So for example, you've got this orange one here with the terminations for 4 to 5 years. So they've been with the business for 4 to 5 years, and you can see how many of them there were. So in 2022, there was one of those, for example. So this is the basic table that you can create on there. But as I say, you can also change the dimensions. So if you wanted to put the dimensions onto one axis, then you could drag and drop that into the pivoted dimensions one and then rerun the query. And the only problem with that is, as I say, it doesn't present the data in as coherent a form. So I personally wouldn't recommend doing it, but the option is there if you want to. So some people do like to do that. Personally, I prefer this one because it's a bit more colorful and the information is segregated out a little bit better. And if we wanted to make this a little bit easier to view, then I could actually reduce that. So rather than being 5 years, we could do the last 3 years instead. And if I now generate that again, so we'll just rerun the query. There you go. So at some point since yesterday, when I was testing it, they appear to have removed some of the data for what was in there for 2024. But that's all right. We've got the 2023 one on there. They're always messing about with these things. But as you can see on there, it's now just giving me the terminations for 2022 and 2023. And if you wanted to, as I say, you could add in additional dimensions for it. So if you wanted to go into there and in your chart, so if we go back to the top here, you could then go in and you could add in age. If you use the dimensions, you could add age into there. So if you're looking for specific age groups or something like that. Now, you could change this as well. So for example, if you change it to pie chart and run the query, there you go. And the pie chart is not a good way of viewing it really, but once again, there are different ways that you can view. So you can choose the different ones. You can try a scatter plot if you want, but what you'll have on there is you'd have to add in extra metrics for it to be able to do it. But the other thing that you can do, if we just go back to the basic chart, and if we look at terminations there, so you can change the way that this is going to show the data. So we've got that set to column at the moment. We could change that to spline, for example. So if we run the query there, and as you can see, it just gives us this line instead. So you can change the way that it views that data by selecting the particular dimension or metric and then choosing the series type on there for it. So you can make your own changes to that and tweaks. Now you'll notice that in addition to the information that you've got here, so you've got the graph itself, and below that we've got information about the people, the tenure, when they left the business, etc. And there is an export option on there as well. So if you click on export there, that will then export a CSV file with that data on it for you, which you can then access from the exports page. Now it's actually open now. This is what I was trying to get to do earlier on, but it didn't work. So that just gives me a list of the terminations and the tenure on there for it. But you can also do an export on this as well. So if you want to export that graphic file, you can do that too. So we've got that there too. Now, another thing that you can do, because if you wanted to keep this chart, then either of these, whether it's the one that produces a CSV file or whether it's the one that produces the graphic file, you'll notice that there's a little pin on there, and you can save these to different areas. The Insight library, that's within the storyboards area, but you can also pin to existing or new storyboards. Now, as I mentioned earlier, anybody who's got the core version of this won't be able to create their own storyboards. So you'd only be able to pin it to an existing one. And if you click on pin to existing, you can then go in there, choose the one that you want. So these ones at the top are ones that we've built or that different members of Morpay have built, and you could add your file to one of those, or you could add it to one of the standard ones. As I mentioned before, though, that doesn't mean that they'd be visible on the main dashboard when you log in. You'd have to view them from the storyboards bit. So wherever you wanted to put this, if we wanted to put it into terminations under movements there, and you can then, if there's more than one page for the storyboards, you can choose which one and then just give it a name. And then once you've done that, you can then save it and then either save and go to the storyboard or save and stay on this page if you want to do some more messing about with it. Now, if you've got the advanced version of it, you can actually create your own storyboard. So when you go on there, it's got pinned to new storyboard and also existing. So if you pin to new storyboard, that means that you get to give the storyboard a name, and you can then also add pages to it if you want to. So you have page 1, and you can give it a title on there as well, so whatever you want to call it. And then after that, once again, save and stay on the page or save and go to the storyboard. Either of those will work. Now, if we just cancel out of there, I'm not going to add to the storyboards, but if you then click on go to the storyboard, it would take you straight into the storyboards area here. If you decided not to, then it'd just keep you on the graph there and you could just keep playing around with it and adding information to it. But then, whichever storyboard you'd saved it to on here, you would be able to pick up your chart from here for it. So on here, you'd just select the one that you'd saved it to and you would be able to access your graph. So even if you added it to one of the standard ones, like absence or terminations or something like that, you would only be able to access it from the storyboard list here. You wouldn't be able to do it from the main screen. So if you go back to the home page here, if you've created your own version of one of the reports on here by clicking on Explore and then adding bits to it, it wouldn't appear or change anything in here. But if you went into the storyboards list, you'd be able to see what you'd saved onto the storyboard there instead. So that is the basics of the way that the analytics tool works. As I said before, it depends on how much information you put into it, really, as to what kind of data you can get back out. And I would say that if you're looking for specific information about employees, there's a fair amount of it that you would be able to get better out of the the extractor tool. But there is quite a powerful tool. You can get a lot of information out of it, but it's as good as the data that you put into it, really, on that. As I say, if you've got core, then it will only really show you the top few. But if you've got premium or advanced version of the system, then you'll also be able to look at things like safety and development. The advanced one also allows you things like recruitment, stuff like that as well. So you can create charts against those two. You just have to know which bit to look at. So just remember that in the Explore version here, if we go into here, you've got the metrics area there, which allows you to enter the data that relates to specific things that you want to look at. So like absence, or as I say, terminations, or anything like that. But you've also got the area below that under the metrics bit where you've got the dimensions as well. And for that, once you've got the kind of data that you're looking for, like absences or terminations or any of that, you can then specify what you want to look at. So whether you want to look at people whose tenure is over a certain amount of years, or whether you want to look at people who were born between specific ages, who were actually specific ages even. So you can see there, you can do 20 or 20 to 30. You can go in, you can make that a bit more specific if you want to as well. So you can actually provide quite specific filters on there as well if you're looking for particular information on that. Now, that, as I say, is all the essential areas of the analytics tool. We do actually do training sessions on the analytics tool as well, but they, as you can probably guess, can take quite a long time. But this is just a sort of potted overview showing you all the different areas of it and how to use it. And as I say, playing around with it is the best thing, really, because the more that you play around with it, the more that you get the hang of it, and the more information you'll get out of it. And you can't break it. Say if you do have any, get to the point where it doesn't present any data, that's either because you've given it too much information, or like mine before, I was looking at 2024 and the data wasn't there anymore. But we moved it and it was showing 2022 and 23 instead. So you will sometimes get issues where it won't present anything just because there's no data, and other times it might be because you asked it for too much information. But if you just remove the last thing that caused the file to fail, then it will just regenerate it with the correct data on there for you. Now, it's a bit of an involved one, this one. We usually have a lot longer for questions, but the problem with the analytics tool is there's an awful lot of it. However, let me have a look at the questions and we can see what's going on. Okay, so the top one here, we've got mine says I don't have permissions. Even we get this sometimes, and I checked it yesterday because something happens in the background which prevents us, and we have to then get them to switch it back on. So if you don't actually have permission for it, there's two possibilities. It might be that it's not actually on your account. However, most people do actually have the core version at least. So the normal reason why is just because it's not been switched on. So if you're still in implementation, if you speak to the implementation team, they'll be able to make sure that's sorted out. If you're actually with the BAU teams, the payroll teams, then if you just pass the query to them and they can get that activated for you. So if you do have a problem where you can't get into it, then just let us know and we can then get that sorted out for you. As I say, it happens to us from time to time as well. Now, next question there. So that is, can you change the analytics main dashboard? So as I mentioned earlier, as far as that goes, that question was asked before I said this, to be fair. But no, you can't edit the main dashboard. But what you can do is you can go into the storyboards and you can add to those. So you can sort of edit the information if you want to, but you're not doing it from the front end there. You do it through the storyboards option. Next one there, my dashboard says I don't have permission. So once again, if you don't have permission, then if you just drop us a line and we can have a look at that. I can't see analytics on my. There's quite a few questions like this one actually, which is that you don't have access to it. So as I say, anyone who doesn't have access to it, if you either speak to the implementation team, if you're in implementation, some of you might be, most of you though will be with the payroll team. So if you just have a word with them and they'll be able to sort that out for you. Using next gen payroll. So actually analytics, people can use analytics on the old version of the system. If you've got the current gen version, some people still do, you do have analytics access on that one as well. The actual layout on that is slightly different, but essentially it works the same way. Yeah, you should still have access to that if you do have the next gen, so the current gen version. I get you don't have permission to view this data. So once again, as I say, if you have a word with the payroll team, they should be able to check that. Now, it's an interesting question here, actually. What period does the data cover, calendar year or financial year? That actually depends on what the data is. Like, for example, if you look at the terminations, then the standard calendar on the main screen, it's actually a rolling, it's actually, for the current year even. But if you have a look at the absences one, that's on a 12-month rolling period. Now, the thing is, though, if you have the advanced version of it, then you can go in and you can choose the periods that you want to look at. But the main menu, it will depend on the data. So the highest one, that actually goes back for about 10 years or so, if you've got that kind of data going back that far. But others, it will be on a rolling year, or it might be on a financial year, or an absence year. So it does depend on the kind of data that you're looking at as far as that goes. Re-explain, I don't have permissions to view. Once again, that's another permissions one. What if you don't have the explore function? Now, the explore function, as I say, that's only for the advanced version. So that means that the only access that you've got is to that main dashboard that you see when you log in. So if you have the core version, you don't get the explore functionality, as I mentioned earlier. If you're interested in having the explore functionality, then if you speak to your account manager, and they'll be able to give you a quote on how much it would cost to do that. But the reason why you don't have Explore is because you've got the core version of it. So the chances are with that you're probably either an essential or a premium customer, because a lot of the premium customers only have the standard version as well. But some of the premium customers pay for the extra and get the advanced, and usually if you've got the advanced version of the software, you'll normally also have the advanced version of the analytics as well. I only have more pay for payroll. Should this have the explore button? I would say normally if you have just the payroll version, which is the essential version, you won't have the explore button. That is something that you only get if you've got the advanced version of it. Once again, another question, the same one again. So if you have the core version, you won't have the explore option on there for it. It's only the people who've got the advanced version. How quickly does the main compensation figure update after the payroll has been run? So normally I would expect that you'd be able to see the changes in the compensation from the next period. So if you have if you put any changes through, then it should update in real time as far as that goes. So you should be able to view that from the next period. And then I got another question similar to that. Is it possible for you to confirm how quickly the data is updated? It does depend on the kind of data with that one, but certainly some of it will update as soon as you do it. So like absences and all like that should actually update straight away, really. But some of it would only happen once you've actually completed the payroll. So it does depend on the kind of data that you're looking at for that too. As our data seems out of date, is it done on a quarterly basis? As I say, it depends on the kind of data. Some of it updates more quickly than others with that. And then another one here, not sure if it's my system, but I don't have the option to explore. Once again, the explore option is normally only available if you have the advanced version of it. So that will be the reason. When you save a change in next gen, add a new starter, how long does the data take to put through on the analytics tool? Does it refresh every evening or would the data show straight away? So once again, that will depend on the kind of data that you put through on there. Typically though, the majority of it, I wouldn't expect it to show until you've actually processed. So as a general rule of thumb, I would say that it's got to process first before you're looking at the data on there for it. We have analytics with our HR tag, but I can't see the Explore tab. If you don't have the Explore tab, as I say, it'll be because you've got the core version. So if you want to speak to your account manager, they should be able to talk to you a bit more about that. Normally, the core version of it, so the question here, is this function free or is there a fee involved? Normally, the core version is available to everybody. It's only if you want the advanced version that you have to pay. It depends to an extent on what version you've got of the system and what's been agreed in the set up for you. But normally I would expect that you would have access to the core version of it. And if you wanted the advanced one, then you might have to pay extra on that. But that does depend a little bit. So once again, if you speak to your account manager, they'll be able to confirm that. Now I think, there we go. I think we're all done. Now, that's the whole lot. So if you have any other questions, you can still refer back. You can you could go through your account manager, or you can even put them through and we can pick them up. A lot of people sometimes put questions through on the training thing. But thank you for your time today. I hope that you found the masterclass useful. If you have any feedback or other areas of the product that you'd like us to cover in future, then please do reach out to us and let us know, and we'll do our best to accommodate your requests. But thanks very much for your time today, and I hope you have a good day. Thanks very much.